Howdy folks, and welcome back. I'm Rick at the Luminary Shoppe. This is the third video in a series that I'm doing on the restoration of this pair of Hearse lamps. They have a tag in them signed M.T. Gleason, G-L-E-A-S-O-N, from New York. And the only other lamp company that I can find that there's any information of is M.T. Gleason, G-L-E-E-S-O-N, from Columbus, Ohio. So I don't know if there's actually a connection between these two, if there's a misspelling somewhere or what. But there's no information on the manufacturer by the spelling of the tag in these lamps. Further investigation is warranted. In this video, I'll be concentrating on the tails or stems of these lamps. They were made in the traditional way with steel cores, which in this case have pretty much rotted completely away. The upper portion that supports the spinnings or decorative parts of the tails have been removed at some point, probably by whoever electrified these lamps in order to get their wires passed through. Now, when tails were intended to be silver plated, as these were, they were normally made of a non-ferrous metal, either copper or brass. But in this case, they've been damaged so much from exposure to the elements over the years that they're actually pitted all the way through. Even if a hole hasn't developed, the pitting is still there. It will be impossible to polish them up for a good quality plating job. So I'll probably end up replacing the sleeves on these tails. Now, as usual, I'm wrestling with myself as to what to conserve and what to replace, and still end up with a job that will be pleasing to my customer and myself. But in this case, I'm probably going to end up replacing all of the outer sleeves of these lamps so that we can get a good polish and silver plate. I will use all of the old parts as patterns, so when I get done, these tails will look exactly like the originals. The tapered stems are made up of a series of truncated cones. The top and bottom of each piece is cut in a curve to the proper radius. In this case, I was able to copy that by making the patterns off the old pieces. By rolling these cylinders in incremental steps, I minimize the flats in each end that the roller would produce. I also introduce the piece of metal into the roller with the leading edge parallel to the rolls. Prevents that edge from being forced into an arc and makes for a nice flat seam. I have to apologize for the focus here. I didn't realize it until I was all done with this step. So we'll just carry on. The seam is formed with a 1/8 inch overlap. The upper portions of the cores in these tails will be steel in order to have the extra strength to support those spun parts. I'm using brass for the lower portion of the cores in these stems to try to ward off some of that corrosion that we saw in the original stems. You may notice that the joint in the cores is about 1 inch away from the joint in the outer sleeves. This makes for a much stronger assembly. I'm checking to make sure that this sleeve will slide over the core before I solder it all together. The solder joints on the upper and lower sleeves are lined up, and they will be facing to the back or rear of the lamp when it's all assembled. This decorative ring will cover that joint in the center of the length of the tail. This simple guide will help me make sure that the tail stands straight and therefore will protrude true from the bottom of each lamp. Well, that pretty much takes care of the stems for these lamps. In the next video, I'll be dealing with the spun parts that go at the top of the lamps. And speaking of the next video, I would normally be releasing that video on June 18th. But instead, I'm going to take a little time off, take some family time. I'm going to float the Colorado River through the Grand Canyon with my grandson Patrick, and do a little other visiting as time allows. So, good Lord willing and the creeks don't rise, pun intended, my next video will be released on July the 2nd. I hope to see you then. So until then, stay well and thanks for watching.